the Christian nation. And apart from that, I think as an organization, we also believe in God. Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this afternoon, that you have given us a privilege to be before you and speak to the nation. Father, we ask you that you guide us through and through. There are a lot of issues that we are trying to tackle in the nation. But Father, we pray for sobriety, that you guide us with your spirit, that we tackle those issues according to the interest of the people. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Having prayed, I would like to welcome the media and welcome everybody gathered. And I think let me take this opportunity to congratulate Honorable Mundubile, who was just appointed as the chairperson for parliamentary affairs for Tonse.
Yeah.
And I think we welcome that appointment. I also want to recognize the presence of the MCCs within the Patriotic Front. There also the presence of senior MPs, among them Honorable Kampiongo, Honorable Mutito Kafwaya, and the Honorable Sanga. Having said that, I would like to tell the media that we will mainly focus on the issues emanating from the Constitution. The issues emanating from the Constitution, because the Constitution is a living document of our country, and we will tackle bodies that come from there. As you know, that there is a debate in the nation that is talking about the Constitution, but we have today we are going to take an approach of when you want to propose, have you respected the current document and many other. And as you know, that the Constitution tackles a lot of issues, among them corruption, corruption which may in this case include pet corruption. It may also include institutional corruption and grant corruption. So those also are related constitutional issues. Having said that, I think I would like to ask Honorable Kafwaya to set the ball rolling. Honorable Kampiongo to set the ball rolling on the issues that are pertaining to constitution and other related issues of governance, so that the public may benefit from our interaction. Honorable Kampiongo, sir.
Thank you so much, my brother and comrade, Honorable Kove. Mine today will be very short. Before my colleagues start deliberating on the many pertinent issues obtaining in the nation, I would like to just first acknowledge the appointment of our honorable colleague, Honorable Member of Parliament for Prokoso, Honorable Brian Mundubile, who has been appointed by the our leader of the Tonse Alliance, Dr. Edgar Chagwalungu, who is now be in charge of parliamentary affairs under the Tonse Alliance. I also want to congratulate another eminent citizen, very well known in the legal fraternity as well as on the political scene, Mr. Chifumubanda, State Council, who will be deputizing Honorable Mundubile in so far as the parliamentary affairs of the Tonse Alliance is concerned. So we thank the leadership for appreciating the role of parliamentarians under the Tonse Alliance. And we are happy that Tonse Alliance has already given us a member of parliament from Petauke Central, and that gives us an impetus to even do more. I also want to assure the Tonse leadership that we, as their parliamentarians, will remain available, and we will be always on a beck and call for duties related to the Tonse Alliance. And even as we deliberate on national matters, such as the constitutional matters that have arisen, we will be interacting closely so that we ensure that the people's desires are not abandoned or are not ignored as the debates take shape. But like I said yesterday in my debate, we are still calling on the government to take charge and provide leadership, because constitutional matters are not only about the president and the members of parliament. It's not about how many members of parliament you are going to garner from National Assembly to support the constitutional changes. This is a people's document. That's why in the preamble of the Constitution, it's very clear to say we, the people of Zambia, and we, the people of Zambia, includes all the stakeholders, citizens. The consultative processes must be clear and must not leave anyone behind in terms of coming up with what is supposed to be the constitution. So, again, like I said yesterday, it's worrisome to start hearing, different positions coming from the same government. The Minister of Justice, which is supposed to be at the center of the process, seems to be in the dark. And they don't even know where to start from. Because even the minister is basically just making lamentations, referring to the past without being clear on what their intentions are. And then you start hearing the presidential spokesperson, I don't know if he's a spokesperson, saying there's a draft. Which draft is a product of a very unknown process. A draft must be a product of a clear process, consultative process, so that people know what they are expecting. So lastly, just to encourage my colleague who has been given the responsibility to deal with parliamentary affairs, that you have got a huge responsibility of ensuring that you galvanize the potential of all the members of parliament that mean well for the people of Zambia, who still understand that their being members of parliament is not about themselves. It's not about their personal desires. You should make sure that you bring unity among the well-meaning members of parliament. And I know that you are equal to the task. I've got no iota of doubt in my mind that you'll be equal to the task, and we shall support you in ensuring that the responsibilities bestowed on you are achieved. To the Tonse leadership, like I've said, we are looking forward to collaborating with you, with yourselves, our leaders, the Vice President of the Patriotic Front, and our other leaders from the various political parties that form the Tonse Alliance. Must be assured that we will be available for consultations as and when need arises. To the honorable members, like I've said, who mean well, we have got no reason not to support our colleagues that have been appointed to manage the affairs of honorable members. Ultimately, we have got people to save. We have got people to save. And if you want to be clever now, the people of Zambia know how to wait for clever members of parliament. Those of us who have been around long enough will be able to tell you that people cannot be taken for granted. You can be smart today, eat, and care about your stomach, but they'll be waiting for you. And to you, the people, you'll be seeing all of us by our actions. You see those that are still with you and those that are ready to betray you. It will be very easy for you, the people, because we know that you are also very clever. Mwebantu bakwalesa, ture milomba fwe kwa bati fwe babomfiwe nufo mwasala, okumumini nako, nga washire ba mwanda amafunde. Turi awa iperesha, okumona okutila, fionse ifire fwa ikuwa kuchituka mchalo, fya chituka mwishila iyayana. Neri ashiri alupapulo eri abanandi balala ndapo, liashiri enu, liashiri achalo, teri ashiri muntu moyo. Teri ashiri ifwe kawa ashiri wa mwanda amafunde. Teti tuituntumbefe fwe katu haikala tuwebere yo mkwai ulupapulo nifi. Turapanga amafunde, aya kusungira mwechalo. Enchito matupela. Lelo, dide funde likalamba. lifunde lyayimumwe bantu chifwire chamuneko okutira elo mulire ikatwapo nishinayimuna mukusenda molubali echo kubera n'okupiribula okufunya mu kisungu mwatwala mu kibemba mwatwala mu kinyanja mwatwala mu kikaonde mwatwala mu kirubale mu kirozi mu kitonga n'emitundu yonse pako ati n'omwikala kyalo onse ayishiba okutira ifire fo okukijuka mu lupapulo nifi eferi ashiri aba kanshi abana ndindesubira balalanda papali ashiri kolobonda mu bwino like I'm saying, people of Zambia, be assured that those of us who mean well, you will see what we shall be doing. Those who have opted to only take care of themselves, again, you will see. Because when people betray you, forgetting that they'll still be coming back to you next year, you have got a very big time. But you don't have to wait for next year to participate in the affairs of the nation and to participate in the issues that are rising concerning the Constitution. So, Mr. Fube, I thought I could just speak briefly about the decision by His Excellency, the former head of state, Dr. Edgar Chagwarungu, who is the leader of the Tonse Alliance, and how he is shaping up the leadership of the Tonse movement. I thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think Honorable did underscore that the Constitution is the people's document. You reported in the preamble. But further, we also need to appreciate that all the arms of government, all the three arms of government, in their open records, they start that the powers that are in the three arms of government belongs to the people. And I think when we talk about that, those who care to check, you can check Article 61, you can also check Article 90, you can also check Article 118, that the Constitution belongs to the people. And even the arms of government belongs to the people. Not that drama that we saw during Women and Youth Day, where the president has to go to the women and impose to them that we, the women, have agreed that we are going to amend the Constitution. And he further went to the youths in Mongo to tell them that they have agreed. Where they agreed, I don't know if at all we are now in the dream world, which is utopia, and where people have to start agreeing in dreams, not a process, because the Constitution has a clear process of coming up with such. And having said that, I would like now to call upon Honorable Kafwaya to give us what he has prepared for us. And as I said, we will toil, because the elephant in the room now is the Constitution. Whether we are talking about the corruption, whether we are talking about any other topic, we will relate it to the Constitution and see whether we are even upholding the current Constitution. Honorable Kafwaya, sir.
Thank you so much, Honorable Fube. Allow me to recognize the presence of senior members of Parliament, Honorable Brian Mondobile, the newly appointed overseer of parliamentary business for Tonse, Honorable Tsanganima, Honorable older brother who's just spoken. I would like to join my older brother, Honorable Stephen Kampiongo, in congratulating you, Honorable Mondobile, for your appointment. And I would like to wish you God's blessings as you execute your function. Now, I hear the Constitution is a main issue.
Sure.
I've observed that UPND wants to corruptly procure the amendment of the Constitution of the Republic of Zambia. I think it is corruption on the part of UPND to want to amend the Constitution against the will of the Zambian people. The Law Association of Zambia has confirmed that government does not listen. They have been advising the UPND government on the Constitution, and the UPND government has been refusing to listen. Now, the Law Association of Zambia is not the only body that has advised against the amending of the Constitution. Church mother bodies, the CCZ, EFZ, ZCCB have all rejected the amendment of the Constitution. Government is not listening. And why am I saying government has refused to listen? Just today on the floor of the House, ministers were still pushing people to accept the amendments. It's really, really unfortunate. 14 civil society organizations sat and delivered their thoughts, all of them in unison. They do not want the amendment to the Constitution. But what do we have? Is UPND is insisting. And when you listen to the reasons for which they want to amend the Constitution, youth empowerment, to empower youths, you know, to come and be able to take leadership roles. And yet the Constitution right now provides for anybody who has an opportunity to make appointments to be able to include youths, and they have not adhered to those particular provisions, and you think that they'll be able to adhere to new provisions because they are the ones who are pushing for their, you know, for their amendment. It's very, very unfortunate. But also, one minister today was on TV asking the youths not to belong to youth movements. So for UPND, you can only be recognized as a youth if you belong to UPND. And that's very unfortunate. Democracy is not about UPND. It is about allowing people to participate in the various organizations that they choose to belong to. Listen to the contradictions about the same constitution. Listen to what the president has said. You know, just over a short period of time, the president would go to members of parliament and say, we have consensus. Last week we were asking, who is part of the consensus? Here there was nobody. And I can assure you, even today, there is nobody who is or was part of that consensus. Listen to what he said in Kasama. Listen to what he said in Mongo. Just things which are totally non-existent. But he hasn't stopped there. He has continued to talk about it. And yet, his own Minister of Information told us that this government has got no intentions of amending the Constitution. What else have we heard? We've heard from the Minister of Justice that there is actually no draft. But we've also heard elsewhere, in fact, from the Office of the President, that actually the draft is there. When you hear what the former Minister of Justice is saying, says consultations began when he was Minister. And yet the President has been saying there is no need for a costly process because work has been done in the past. So it's very, very unfortunate. The whole transaction is mad with suspicion, and I think the president would do well to just stop this process, come and embark on a clean process when time allows. At the moment, time will not allow anybody to amend the Constitution before we go to 2026 pause. Now, elsewhere I indicated my conviction that there has never been and will never be a corrupt government as compared to UPND. UPND is such a corrupt government. I wish I could use my older brother Chimbakambwili's expression. Look at the issue to do with the agro-fuel. The company, this same agro-fuel, the company was single-sourced to clean up the pipeline. Why the company was single-sourced? You tend to wonder, because it was not an emergency. Therefore, why did government choose to go the single-sourcing way? There's the same single-sourcing that we've been hearing about everywhere. This same company was again single-sourced to be the sole user of the pipeline. And you won't believe it, this company was charging $115 per ton to transport fuel. But you see, after a lot of noise about open access, even IMF joined into the noise, then government decided to open up the access. But what do? They go and procure the same company again. But at how much this time? At $54 per ton. Now, from $115 to $54 per ton, So this company was overcharging by $61. That is over 100% of the cost for so many, for 2 years plus. 2 years plus, a company has been overcharging. And you come and procure the same company after the noise about, all this open access. Now, when this same company was single-sourced to clean up the pipeline, there was an issue of dead stock, a stock which they found in the pipeline. The story has not been talked about by anyone. Now, the president, for me, has been conveniently quiet about this issue. We have been complaining about how costly fuel has been in the country. Part of the reason is that we were being charged $115 per ton to transport the fuel, which should have been $54. So today, our fuel, the cost of fuel, is because of the purchase cost and the transportation cost, including transporting it from Dar es Salaam into our reservoirs in Ndola. But look at the deal. Look at the amounts involved. That is why my younger brother, Bino Mpundu, called this as economic sabotage. It is economic sabotage. And unfortunately, the president who is supposed to secure our interest with the Zambian people has been quiet. He doesn't care at all about these matters. The same way he doesn't care about, the problems at KCM. You imagine what noise UPND has made about KCM and Mopani. They were saying we are revamping mining operations on the Copper Belt. The KCM today is a mess. It is a total mess. A company which gets power from ZESCO and sells it to mining companies is the one now which wants to take over assets of KCM.
It's unbelievable.
It's, you just can't understand. Listen, CEC does not produce any power. The power comes from ZESCO. The investors in ZESCO are the Zambian people. So that power comes from us, the Zambian people. And then CEC is sold that power at a discount. They sell to the mines. And because of that now, they want to take over Mopani. They want to take over the assets of Mopani. If it wasn't for the Court of Appeal, today Mopani could have lost assets. KCM could have lost assets. Yeah, so I have a huge problem with how UPND conducts its business, and yet they are always on top of molehills and mountains, claiming how how administratively correct they are when they deal with these matters. It's very disappointing. I think UPND must change. Look, if you don't change, no matter how much you beg for votes like what the president was doing in Kabwe, Zambians will not listen, because you promised KCM was going to be revived. What have you done to it? You promised Mopani was going, in fact, the president was even dancing when handing over Mopani, I don't know to who. To those who got 7,000 shares plus. What is happening at Mopani? Completely nothing. Completely nothing. Ask any person who is doing work with Mopani. You find that Mopani is worse off now. But this is the country we have now. Within the same mining, there is a company called Sensele Mining, which was doing mining in KCM. There is a report here at the National Assembly of Zambia. There is nothing that has happened. Even Auditor General can't go there. The law enforcement agencies, this so-called SEC and DEC, they can't go there. I wonder whether the owners of Sensele are the same people who own CEC, because there has to be some connections. Okay. Which is that company? Canona Energy. There's another one called Canona Energy. Okay, it's always I'm telling you. This country is finished. Canona Energy gets power from ZESCO and then sells the power to mining companies in the northwestern province. Again, why isn't ZESCO selling power directly? What is this business of everything having somebody in between?
Yes.
Who are these people?
Yes, be a middleman.
Who are these people? SEC, can you please find out? Niba nani ababantu, the ones who are in between all the time. Niba nani. Look, Bakalamba, my other brother, or the senior counsel Tsanga, ukupango musebo. Moneni, ukupango musebo. Mwabule ndra mashabe na Zambia, these workers, these ones, they contribute to NAPS. You get their money, okay? You give a contract. Can you make a road, a parallel road to what is existing from Lusaka to Ndola? And they start making. Then you go and get another company at you, just sit in between here, start collecting toll gate fees. What is happening to this country? That is the Zambian people's money. The road is for the Zambians. The toll gates which are there for the Zambians, developed by the people of Zambia. But you go and collect somebody who is doing nothing completely like Kanona Energy. It's very, very unfortunate. All these are corrupt issues. But here is the point. The road from Lusaka to Ndola belongs to the Zambian people. That is the road for people. Even the money being deployed to construct it is money for the Zambian people. But how do you give it away? Without subjecting it to constitutional requirements. Without subjecting it to parliamentary oversight, when the constitution demands for that. But this is the constitution we want to change. First of all, you can't respect the current constitution. You want the Zambian people to believe that you'll be able to respect it after its amendment. This is very unfortunate. I think I would like to end at appreciating the Law Association of Zambia for suing Ron Mwambwa, or this is the Attorney General, for suing the Attorney General for the removal of Ron Mwambwa from office. And I would like it to be clear that the issue here is the office of the Auditor General and not Ron Mwambwa. There is a constitutional requirement for qualifications of the Auditor General. Ron Mwambwa does not qualify, and there is nothing anybody is going to do to make him qualify. So taking that matter to court for his removal, because we have been telling this UPND government, remove this person. If you love him so much, you can make him a PS, you can make him a DC, you can make him an ambassador, you can, if you really, really love him. But UPND has been refusing. But now, it has ended up in court. So for me, I am happy that Laz has taken that step. But what has happened to Ron Mwambwa is very important for any person who is occupying office unconstitutionally. I recall that those ministers in PF who were judged to have occupied office unconstitutionally, they were even told to refund the money that they earned. I wish Laz can include the fact that Ron Mwambwa should pay back the money that he has been earning unconstitutionally, because that's very important. The country should be even. Other people who are sitting in these offices unconstitutionally should also know that their time is coming. And I have in mind Second Deputy Speaker Moyo. Second Deputy Speaker Moyo is in office unconstitutionally. There is a constitutional court judgment which is clear. It has told everyone that Deputy Speaker Moyo does not qualify to be Speaker. So again, today, Deputy Speaker Moyo may be thinking that he's protected. A time is coming. Don't think Ron Mwambwa is foolish. Ron Mwambwa is not foolish. There are people who will pursue these matters. And I can assure you, what you are earning now will be demanded by the Zambian people. What you are earning as a speaker, the privileges you have acquired as a speaker will be nullified. After being nullified, you pay back. Those ministers who paid back were not unwise. It is because it was found that they were unconstitutionally in office. Even this Speaker Moyo, as soon as that court judgment came out to say he doesn't belong to any political party, therefore he cannot be a speaker, if I were him, I could have just told my appointing authorities that I don't qualify. Let me just go back to representing the people of Luangeni. It is up to you, sir. But time is coming. And I can assure you, you will be made to account, just like Ron Mwambwa will now have to account. And if they just remove you without making you pay, some of us will go to court. We make sure you pay, the same way other people have been made to pay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Honorable Kafwa, I think he did tackle the issues of corruption, especially institutional corruption, which is a constitutional issue. And I think you all know that he entered on Tazama, he entered on the Ndora Dua carriageway, which is a constitutional question of Article 210, which has not been brought to Parliament. And yet, an asset of that level has been handed over to private hands. But I think Honorable Kafai also appreciated. He has been a champion, some of you remember, he has been a champion on the issue of the Auditor General's office, especially that under Article 252, the Auditor General doesn't sit well. Further, the Audit Act of Zambia, which further qualifies, who qualifies to be in that office. The current officer of that particular office. And further, we know that there are a lot of office bearers. I hope that at this juncture, you can allow me to also remember the judgment that cleared him, that he was cleared, that he was taken to court, that he has been handing those perks rightly. But we all know hope that the other occupier of that particular office, called the leader of the opposition, is earning the money, right, according to Article 74. If that is not the case, please, we are going to revisit the Zambian people, and we are going to demand what belongs to the people. The judgment. Number 3, we are wait to see whether the future has proper standing on that one. And I think, having said that, especially that I did indicate that he has emphasized on institutional corruption, I want the council now to come in on, and I think, as you know, that the thematic area that we are trying to dwell on today is the constitution. Council Tsang.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I'm honored to return to the press. I missed it last week because of national assignments elsewhere, where I was representing the party in the northern province. But I was following what happened last Friday, and I just want to share my accolades to my colleagues who were here, as it were, and who found time to speak to the press. Of course, the elephant in the room, even today, is our challenges with the constitutional making in the country. What we are now faced with is growing discontentment by stakeholders on the route that the UPND would like to take, in effecting amendments to the Constitution. It appears that our colleagues are not prepared to lend a hearing ear to those who are raising genuine concerns about the Constitution. But leader of opposition, and also to congratulate my colleague, Honorable Brian Munduvire, for his appointment. I'm sure that this kind of leadership that is continues to provide at Parliament will make us more effective, not only as Patriotic Front, but also as Tonse Alliance. I know that the Zambians, wherever they are thinking that Tonse is the answer to the challenges that we have insofar as political party governance in the country is concerned. We continue to consult with each other as we continue to provide effective leadership to the Zambian people on credible opposition. And this is why you see names like Honorable Brian Munduvire being picked and appointed to that important assignment. We'll give you all our support, sir, like my colleagues have said. Congratulations. Before I make my brief remarks, I just want to point out an issue of concern that I have. regarding the way in which the UPND government is handling the presidency. The presidency is a very important office in this land. And I speak as a citizen of the Republic of Zambia who is genuinely concerned about the goings-on in the office of the president. Last week, the president had an opportunity to go and open some factory in Kabwe on the, I think this is a seed-making factory. The information that the public was first fed with is that there was a blanket instruction for secondary schools and colleges and universities not to function on that day because the president was going to be in Kabwe. And everybody raised, it has never been heard of in the last 30 years of our multi-party state system that when the president is dating a particular section of society, the business in that section must grind to a halt. The UPND used to question legitimate holidays that were being declared by President Edgar Chagwa the time we were in power, and those were legitimate and they had justifiable cause. But for the handlers of a presidency to suggest to the people in Kabwe that because the president was going to open that factory, there must be a standstill to every business, especially of academic nature, in Kabwe, was a very worrying development. And Zambians have justifiably condemned, that action. What for me is also of concern is what you saw the president do. You must have a way in which you prepare the mind of a president, in which you prepare the persona of a president, if you have to put him in a public platform to make a statement. I saw a clip of a president addressing the gathering that came to see him, I think, at some ground in Kabwe. The president did not even say anything about the business that took him to Kabwe. Instead, you heard the president begin to plead for votes from secondary school children who are in grade 11 and grade 12 because they had been plucked out of school and put in the audience to come and hear the president pleading with them to say, please vote for me. These are children who don't even have voters' cards. Those who handle the office of a president must pay particular attention to how the president is going to be dating the public. The reason why in 1990 people rose against Kaunda was exactly what our colleagues who are handling the presidency are doing. Every time Dr. Kaunda was coming to Matero, was going to Kasama, was going anywhere else, everything stood still. And Zambians decided we are not going to allow this to happen. But quite frankly, to get the president to be speaking in the fashion that he was speaking on that day, sounding very defeated, pleading for children to like him or to love him, telling them that Bali loves you, can you love me back? For me, I sat in front of that TV and I started saying to myself, what are we doing to the presidency? Saying, oh, because I've given you back your meal allowances, you must become my campaign agents. We're not even in the election yet. And the president gets busy on the podium, pleading with the college students, with university students to be his campaign managers. You don't allow the presidency to exhibit such level of desperation, even when he is not supposed to be desperate. He went there for a specific assignment. He ought to have been kept in check with what he's supposed to have done. He ended up preaching. And everybody started watching the president talking about, God loves us. We know he loves us. But what took the president there was for him to go and open a factory. He ought to have been told, sir, please keep within the speech. Unfortunately, people are now saying he should open the campaigns. Because if you can go to a function like that and begin to talk about, oh, I want you to love Bali back because Bali loves you. When you go out there, go and campaign for me because I brought you meal allowances. You children, grade 11s and 12s, are being told to go and tell the parents to go and vote for Bali. The handlers of a presidency must learn lessons. We should try and see what those who prepare Donald Trump do before he goes to the podium. Those who prepare, President Ramaphosa do before he goes to the podium so that he doesn't get out there and begin to look like there's something of a desperation that he's doing. I think for me, I point a finger of blame this time at those who handle the presidency. Because the president, yes, he wants his votes. But there must be an environment in which he can talk about whether this is the time for us to talk about votes or not. Please learn to handle that office very importantly. He is not a UPND president anymore. He's a Republican president. What he says is listened to by even those who don't belong to the UPND. I think the president must rearrange his protocol handlers. Get people that are qualified, that have handled these works before. I think that's why we've got specific positions in government of people that can handle those kind of important protocol management. So the president cannot reduce himself to a level that we saw. It was extremely embarrassing, for the UPND to do that to the president. They should stop that. Okay? I mean, talking about the constitution, which is, the elephant in the room. Zambians have raised genuine concerns about where we are going with this constitution making. Very genuine concerns. The hallmark of democracy, the hallmark especially of constitutional democracy, is to have leadership that lends a hearing ear to those who speak about a direction we are taking as a nation. And democracy being the rule by the majority, the president or the leadership must be able to listen to what the majority is saying and even capitulate when it becomes necessary. What I have seen are ministers, in a file and rank, coming to the public justifying this need for the amendment, not even saying, we have listened to the Zambia Catholic Bishops Conference, or we have listened to the Zambia Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia and credible CSOs. They are not even listening to those people. They have just taken, It is not a product of a political party like PF or like the UPND. This is why stakeholder consultation is very, very important. Last week, again, the ones who do PR for the UPND must be very careful with what they make available to the public for WhatsApp. Our colleague Chavinga was in the USA for some private visit. I don't know what he went to do in the USA. And he was made to be captured on television, suggesting to the nation, that we have been consulted as Patriotic Front leadership and that we have agreed, and criticizing these leaders who are senior leaders in Patriotic Front, saying they are being hypocritical because they were consulted, they were not, and I don't know why they have changed their mind saying they were not consulted. The fact of the matter is that there has never been any credible consultation for the UPND to the Patriotic Front to say we are going to participate in enacting this constitution. Never. At the time this issue was raised, I think in May or April in 2023, we pointed them to the fact that insofar as PF is concerned, it's an organized political party. You have to consult not only us at Parliament, you also have to consult Secretariat. The Secretary General placed it on record, our position on the constitution-making process. And we said we are not supporting this process that you are taking because we have to consult the people. We guided them that you need to consult the people before you come up with any program for amending the constitution. So when you hear Chavinga, you're coming up now pretending that he's the president of the Patriotic Front and pretending that he's the leader of opposition in Parliament, saying in the manner that he said that he was consulted, you must be dismissive, especially because now it has been made too clear that Chavinga is a project of the UPND to discredit the opposition, to discredit especially the Patriotic Front. Where have you ever heard a leader of a credible opposition political party following the debates that we do in the House? Where have you ever heard somebody say in front of the Ntwala ceremony crowd that we as PF have decided to endorse the president as a candidate for 2026? And if that person goes elsewhere and tells you, insofar as we are concerned, we've been consulted, and we're sitting here telling you the real story, how do you believe a story that is being told to you by somebody called Chavinga? The reality is that please consider what Chavinga has said to be a position of the UPND, because Chavinga is the product of the UPND, and his intention is to make sure that the PF is obliterated and does not even participate in all the processes, especially the process of making the constitution. As Honorable Kafwaya has said, very many stakeholders have raised concern about the route that the UPND is taking in amending the constitution. And many legal scholars have done personal positions on how they should go about trying to do this. A listening government at this time should actually come to the public and say, look, we have listened to what the people have said. We are shelving this idea because there's credibility in what people have said, and we'll wait until the next election. But for them to keep coming and defending their position, it clearly shows that they're not prepared to listen to redeeming voices, to voices of people. You know, leadership doesn't mean that you've got the, you are the one who's got the last say in leadership in terms of decision making. You must consult people. And when people tell you they don't agree with the position, you must actually tell them, I agree with you, bring me your views, we'll suspend this process and go beyond it. Zambians are concerned. We have a very small window between now and the election. There cannot be a credible process of amending the constitution that should take place. The justification that UPND is using of delimitation, proportional representation, returning members of parliament to cabinet, to the chamber, council chambers, cannot justify an amendment that is rushed in the way they're trying to rush it. In fact, the moment you begin to talk about delimitation on the one hand and proportional representation on the other hand, you create confusion in the mind of people that are going to consume that program. Because delimitation, and proportional representation, they're at poles apart. You need to have enough time to let people understand what just these concepts mean when it comes to the Constitution. How am I going to tell the people in Lukasha today that delimitation and proportional representation are going to come into the Constitution and we're going to pass it in the next 9 months? What time am I going to have? Lukasha has got 220 kilometers radius in between. What time do I just have a member of parliament to go and tell those people? The first thing I have to do, fortunately I do speak conveys in their language, but I must translate this so-called draft or the draft that is going to come up in local language so that everybody can consume it and understand it. How much time do we have? So when people begin to say, that we don't have time, please show up this idea. It is not because they don't like you. It is because they think that there's nothing legitimate and credible that is going to come out of a process that takes place only about 6 months before, because in any case, very soon we'll be closing Parliament. Okay? But most importantly, we must answer the moral question as we go about suggesting that we must make the Constitution. The moral question says, the moral right to provide credible and legitimate leadership rises and falls with the character of those charged with the mandate to lead. Your moral right will rise and fall with your character if you are given the responsibility to manage a country. The UPND was given the mandate to run the country for the last 5 years. They won this popular election or the popular vote under this constitutional setting that we're utilizing right now, the one we passed in 2016. How they've questioned it now raises questions in terms of character and morality. Okay? The question that you must then answer yourselves, can we trust the UPND to lead the making of the Constitution, given the experience they've given us in terms of compliance with the current Constitution, like Honorable Kafaya had said? This government has been known to abrogate the most important clauses in the current Constitution. If they have not been able to comply with the current Constitution, what justification would the country have to trust them to lead the process of actually amending this Constitution? Doesn't it occur to those who are listening that possibly they want now to put in clauses that are user-friendly to themselves and the ones that make them survive even the onslaught of the 2026 election? Okay, there are clauses that I can pinpoint here, not many of them, but a few of them, that have been abrogated by this government. To start with, we have raised the issue even on the floor of the House. There's a matter on which there was no pronouncement by the presiding officers, the matter of a second deputy speaker. Article 82(3 on the deputy speakers in Parliament provides that there shall be two deputy speakers to deputize the Speaker of the National Assembly, who shall not come from the same political party and who shall be of two genders. The only compliance they've made is that there are two genders. The deputy speaker is female, the second deputy speaker is male. But they have not complied with the part that says they should not come from they should not come from the same political party. Honorable Moyo, in fact, Mr. Moyo, does not belong to a political party. Mrs. Sangano belongs to the UPND. The second deputy speaker ought reasonably to have come from the opposition political party, which is a patriotic front in the House. Independents don't belong to a political party. That's an abrogation. Article 74, which everybody in the country has argued about, provides on how you elect the leader of opposition in Parliament. We have argued this case. Like Honorable Fowler said, it has even found itself in the corridors of the judicature, and the judicature has made a pronouncement that only Mr. Brian Mungubile was properly elected as leader of opposition. Lo and behold, in breach of this constitution, the presiding officers here changed leadership of the opposition. not only for Honorable Brian Munduvile, but also for Honorable Brian Stephen Campion, and impose people that were created by, a dramatic change of leadership in the Patriotic Front, which also was sponsored by the UPND, and we've said this on record. So Article 74.2 is not being complied with. You add Article 76 that provides for freedom of speech, the powers and privileges and immunities of members of parliament. I mean, the latest experience you had is what happened to Honorable, Robert Kapianga, and then before Nakondis. They were kicked out of parliament because they wanted to debate. Again, by the culprit, who wasn't properly placed in the office of Deputy Speaker himself. So in exercising powers that the Constitution didn't even give him, he made the House kick out those youths out of parliament. Honorable Smumba and Honorable Kapianga out of parliament because they wanted to debate. And I argue, can you trust a leadership that abrogates this Constitution with impunity, with the power, charge them with responsibility to lead us in amending the Constitution? Article 91 and 92, which I like quoting many times, places an onerous responsibility on the Republican president, on how he should manage the affairs of the country. Article 91.3, and I want to quote it again, like I've done many times, places a responsibility on the Republican president and says the president shall, in the exercise of executive authority of the state, 1, respect, uphold, and safeguard this Constitution. I've just pinpointed which clauses, I'll pinpoint others, have been breached by the presidency and also the government in power. 2, safeguard the sovereignty of this republic. The transactions you are seeing between this government and mining investment companies in this country undermines our sovereignty. But our colleagues in government are continuing with that as if they are surrendering our sovereignty to the mine owners. 3, promote democracy and enhance unity of the nation. I need not extrapolate on that. You are able to judge for yourselves. 3, respect the diversity of different communities in the country. I can't extrapolate on that more than I have said. You can judge yourselves. Promote and protect the rights and freedom of a person. How many times have the opposition cried that their rights have been violated? How many times have you heard the presidency respond that we will ensure that there's a rule of law? Okay? And uphold the law, the rule of law. We have repeatedly said there's a dual system of the rule of law in this country. In fact, for me, I've gone ahead and argued that we seem to have replaced the rule of law with the rule by law, which basically is the rule by might. Okay? People have been arguing, I can use a very What else can you introduce if Article 59 mandates you to do what you are saying we're going to do after amending the Constitution? So for me, there is no justifiable explanation that the UPND is going to give to the Zambian people to suggest to amend the Constitution, and in fact, in the route they are utilizing, the route that is devoid of serious stakeholder consultation. Because if they came to the people and said, oh, we want to amend the Constitution because we want to put gender balance in the Constitution, people will point them to Article 259. We'll tell them, but why do you want to amend the Constitution? There's Article 259 which you're not complying with. Oh no, we want to bring in youth in Parliament. They're still pointing to the same article. So for me, we are sitting at a stage where what is credible for the UPND currently is for them to agree that the voices or the redeeming voices of stakeholders have spoken loudly against the need for us to undertake an amendment of the Constitution for two reasons. Firstly, because we don't seem to have time before the next election. Secondly, because the idea of the agenda or the route being espoused by the UPND is inconsistent with the known procedure and practice and customs of how we amend Constitution. So that even when we go to 2026, if God, permits them to continue, we can start the process afresh on the premises of wide stakeholder consultation. But what is going on here, quite frankly, militates loudly against the need for us to talk about amendment of the Constitution. Like somebody said, and I want to end by quoting what Musa Mwenye State Council says. This is a fantastic Constitution. The work that was done to go into the Act number 2 of 2016 was so formidable that we managed elections under this Constitution and the party in opposition got into government. It's possible for us to have the next election using this Constitution without necessarily trying to suggest the amendments that are being proposed now, which can actually wait until we have the election of 2026. I thought I should end by saying that we have justifiably spoken against the need for us to rush the amendment to the Constitution. We have got so many problems that if I sat here and started narrating, it would take me another 1 hour, that the country needs to urgently attend to as we head towards the election of 2026. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Tsanga. I think Honorable Tsanga spoke too much in English. And I thought that I needed to have a bit of an attempt to break it down for my grandmother in the village. I will use Bemba to break it down. In Bemba they say that Shambula Mukompola, then Tsangwe Mukomberesha. What Honorable Tsanga said and underscored is that currently government now Balefu afutu kubika pana fimbi lelo finimo tapade fibare chitapo batsanga batsanga kuna tumisango tumo tule moneka utoto wakateka na babula molu bali ukumona kwati na bamba kampeni bayire mukulombe chite mwiko kumisepera kukawe ukutrati mwali ntemwa na newe na admitemwa bakateka bale moneka ba pererwa mu misango bale chitamu fintu bale moneka ba pererwa mu misango bale chitamu ifya pusana kama ko kulomba mavoti na kutunya kutokushira kwa tamareji ichire piribulo ko batu bakateka bali aba bapani fija batu sata batu muno kulanda tina performance of boys girls epo bafikire batsanga na bala ndano kutirati kulu bali ro bakateka makamaka awo abatangata bakateka ukuthi poseni kwa mano pantu ngatamposa kwa mano bakateka balambo kumunekera mu pantu bakateka bale papatama vote konsoko baya na bakwatenshita papatama vote ngabamu swafi machine chama battery bale papatama vote icho pale kanokashita na chiba chayana ukwebati batsangana balomba lokulomba kutirati ululupapulo inonshita techiturikateko yo pantu mulupapulo nga mwaya mchisungu balanda bati first past the post echita apply pantu ilingirine uteko bule wonfia ukubika kwa member of parliament na ngula ma constituency as a reason nga mwatimula mulupapulo mwa first past the post iyo ilango ko bati member of parliament wachiro mnanko tukato wala ba member of parliament lelo abalelanda ko balelanda kufira kwa women representation kufira kwa representation ya misepera itachire people of trade balelanda po ni mixed proportion ichalo tachipekenye kuli mixed proportion mukumona ukukusha parliament no kumona kutara mixed proportion last time ba isizeti bapangile ukubika kwa constituency na fimbi yale leta na kuli 250 members of parliament ukufuna padi 156 yitwa kwata ichachire people kutiranchi ulupira lwako bapera rufiro lako umwa kuikala mufiro lako na ma constituency na ile people latindala makushecharo na chipekanya ukuya muri yo nshila so dimolimo twirale to mungulu kufyako sa ichi ulupapulo lwachalo luntu lwakosa so twako mungulu tachirifai kwa yo so ukutekwa kutwalo mungulu yo lupapulo chintu ichachalo ngafeme na chilanda ukutira chichawula mukukompola nga mukukombeleshe mu chisangwe munafira okumona ofite mungatwalo lupapulo mukutira ti ululipo lulondoloke ela mutwalo mungulu kufyo ifichira chitika echo batsanga batsalando ko bati tuchefe ko mungulu ukulete mungulu kulupapulo lwachalo pantu mungulu tapaye ko wala kitwala olo mungulu ba opposition kabatobera iyo emkwaye mukwipisha fotu ngalanda padi no nshita kuna temwa ukuitaba tataba mundubire batwe kona bena ba chairman of parliamentary affairs tonsi na bena batwe kama shi batukwatire padi no nshita ndekse tikalanga matumo nebe chairman ne fare mona kala pamene so tewa mungulu so ba chairman tumwa tewa ko se mutabati
na Dr. Sana Wafuve. Yes, I'll start by acknowledging my colleagues, the honorable members of parliament who have spoken before me. We have honorable member for Lunte, a member of Central Committee, honorable Mtoto Kafuaya. We have honorable member for Lukasha, honorable George Chisanga, member of Central Committee. We have honorable Kabasoka Mpampi, honorable member for Mwansavombwe, honorable Kampiongo Stephen, member of parliament for Shwangandu. He is somewhere in the audience. And of course, our director of ceremonies this afternoon, honorable Mulenga Fuve, umwaume wa kuchirubi ushiri wa kutwalia kwa masangeyo. I wish to start by expressing my sincere gratitude to His Excellency the President, President Edgar Chagwa, the Tonse Alliance, the Tonse Alliance Secretary General, Honorable Nakachinda, the acting PF President, Honorable Given Lubinda, Honorable Members of Parliament, and the entire Tonse family at large for this appointment, having appointed me as the National Chairperson for Parliamentary Affairs. I will endeavor to work very closely with all political parties under the alliance, whether represented in Parliament or not, in ensuring that we mobilize the alliance in readiness for it taking over government in the coming year. So I'm truly humbled, colleagues, for the support that you've given me during this time that we've been moving together. My colleagues focused on the constitution and issues of corruption. I will start by talking about the happenings in Parliament. Sometime this week, Honorable Lucas Simumba and Honorable Kapianga were suspended by Deputy Speaker Moyo. And the two honorable members were suspended not because of misconduct in themselves, but they were suspended merely for doing their parliamentary work. I think many of you had occasion to watch the video clips to see exactly what transpired. Now, people have raised concern regarding the conduct of presiding officers in the House. People have raised concerns regarding Parliament and how it's discharging its mandate. Ladies and gentlemen, you must understand that Parliament plays a key role, whether it's in development, providing checks and balances, providing oversight, and many other functions that are undertaken by Parliament. But because of presiding officers, the past 3 years have been very, very difficult years, especially for opposition members of Parliament. Many things have gone wrong in our country, all because Parliament has not been able to discharge its functions effectively. There's been stories, for instance, of export of maize. We all know what happened. And Honorable Kafoya is here, Honorable Kampampi is here. Whenever members of Parliament attempted to advise government not to export maize, presiding officers came in and frustrated the opposition members of Parliament. Today, we have a very high cost of living. You remember the debates on the floor of the House. Many times your members of Parliament, your elected members of Parliament, tried to stop government from exporting power. Instead of the Minister of Energy responding, many a time it's been presiding officers responding and frustrating efforts of MPs on the floor of the House. You talk about activities in the mining sector, activities on the dual carriageway, and many other things that have gone wrong. These were discussions or conversations that were frustrated on the floor of the House, not by fellow members of Parliament, but by presiding officers. So Honorable Kapianga and Honorable Lucas Simumba would have been with us today here, interacting with the media. And specifically, we had assigned to them to deal with the issue of CEC and KCM. They were going to be talking about the relationship or what has transpired to KCM in relation to CEC. Many of you remember that the President Hakainde Hichilema, has been on the platform boasting that his government, the New Dawn government, will ensure that mining is not done in court, but that the mining is done in the actual mines. But today, CEC, as Honorable Kafoya was able to state, does not even generate power. CEC does not even generate power. The historical background of transactions around CEC are well known and well documented. We all know what the story is. But today, because CEC has got directors who are also members of cabinet, has got directors who are friends to the powers that be, who would like to be used as a vehicle to take over KCM. We knew from the beginning, when the matters were being discontinued in court, matters to do with KCM, we knew that sooner or later, the UPND in their usual style will find a way to try and take over this particular mine. So don't take the happenings at KCM lightly. You can see a heavy hand. You can see that they are facilitators. If indeed the UPND, and specifically President Hakainde Hichilema, does not want mining to be done in court, can you tell the Zambian people what is happening to KCM today? How is it that suddenly, CEC has come up? They are so strong, getting every judgment in their favor to try and take over KCM. The question that we ask, because senior members of CEC, directors of CEC are also in cabinet, did they not know about the matters in court? Why did they not stop these matters when they could and facilitate for negotiations or alternative dispute resolutions? Because President Hakainde Hichilema campaigned that he will make sure that mining is not done in court. But today, there's an attempt to take over KCM. We wonder how many things my colleagues have talked about corruption. To use Honorable Mtoto Kafoya's words, ichalo chinachipwa. Mopani mwapoka, free of charge. Mwapoka fe kumaka. Ubu kangarume fe mwapoka. Not a cent has been paid to the Zambian people in exchange for shares at Mopani. Now there's an attempt to get KCM. Mwasenda dio courage we. Dio courage we. Mwasa sendenda kuwe na Zambia. Mwapanga middleman wabu fee. He's collecting toll fees as it is now. How many things are you going to steal from the Zambian people? Chingola Chirabombwe, those targets. So our friends in the UPND are just out there to plunder, and they're not stopping. And they're not stopping. Look at how quickly they ignore the FIC reports. FIC reports 3.1 billion kwacha, 60 billion kwacha, 13.5 billion kwacha. And the president is now saying FIC should stop reporting. They should work quietly. The president is telling FIC and SEC now that they must work quietly. Yeah, because what we are seeing, the decisions that we are seeing in the procurement of fuel, the decisions that we are seeing in the procurement of farming inputs, on the other end, FIC is reporting the illicit flows of money. You can't look at these two things in isolation. Most of these decisions have something to do with exchange of money. And the collaborating evidence is that as they make these decisions, somewhere in the FIC report you find billions of dollars going to their overseas accounts. And yet, with all these figures, they are so courageous, they will come up and call other people thieves. Okay? Abantu wale iba $2 billion, 60 billion kwacha, 15 billion kwacha, in 3 years, $3 billion, can call others as thieves. And when you ask them, I want to know when they were building that classroom block, they could not account for 300,000 kwacha. Kawala lawa 2 billion. Ale ito wa 300,000 kwacha. Misappropriation ekabola. It's unbelievable. But the point that I want to make is that this parliament has largely contributed to the problem that we face today. The non-functioning parliament like ours has contributed, first of all, to us failing to stop load shedding, because members of parliament from the opposition were not given enough opportunities to debate on load shedding. The high cost of living. This parliament could have stopped Mutolo from exporting maize, but presiding officers were frustrating members of parliament, and Minister of Agriculture continued and exported power. That deal carriageway, that deal would have been stopped if it was not for the interference of presiding officers. And I want to say that presiding officers must take stock of their activities over the past 4 years. They have really contributed to the paralysis of that parliament, where they expect all members of parliament to be praise singers. When you're there, you should just praise, sing, and sing for the president that he's done great because he gave away he gave away the Ndola dual carriageway and the toll gates. People must start clapping. People must start clapping because agro fuel, that was selling as a fuel at $117 million per whatever quantity, is now at $54. We must be clapping. When Zambians for 3 years were losing money, our neighbors in Malawi are now buying fuel at 15 kwacha per liter. We use the same port. Logistically, we are going through the same expenses. We are buying at over double the price. And when asked, nobody can answer. Who is pocketing the difference from these overvalued contracts given to agrofuel? Ministry of Energy has got to be taken to task. The Zambian people, we should not sit idle. It doesn't matter if UPND tomorrow decides to reduce the price of fuel. We must ask for the period that agrofuel was supplying fuel at that price, who was pocketing the difference. Because what has changed? The parameters have not changed. What has actually happened is that the Malayans have exposed us that the the fuel suppliers have actually been exploiting us, and government is fully aware. Government is fully aware. The government of President Hakainde Hichilema is a government that talked about removing middlemen. It's a government that talked about the PF government officials upping the price by 3 kwacha per liter, and that they would make efforts to remove that 3 kwacha per liter. But today, we are buying fuel at almost 3 times the price that they found it. So we must pursue this matter, and all those that are involved, whether they're in the private sector or indeed in government, will be pursued. Will ensure that first of all, we recover the money from them, the money for the Zambian people, and that the law must take its course. It's totally unfair. Malawi, they're buying fuel at 15 kwacha, and here it's at 35 kwacha. How do you explain that? Okay? One, Malawi does not even have a pipeline. Okay? We are using the same port to import fuel, but they do not even have a pipeline, and yet their cost of fuel is around 15, which is the price that they can be found in a fuel trading act. But for some reason, and in their usual style, agrofuel, if you unpackage the dealings around that, he is not alone. Okay? The deal around agrofuel is very similar to the deal around the dual carriageway. It's very similar to the deal around Mopani and many others. They've got the same modus operandi. There's always a pawn. There's always a middleman. So in this particular case, if indeed agrofuel was alone as a wrongdoer, he would not have been given the contract again, as you were saying, Honorable Kafaya. Even at a reduced price, they've made sure that again, they've given the same deal to agrofuel. Yeah, so we have talked about corruption many a time. But the point I'm trying to make is that Parliament has been largely dysfunctional because of presiding officers. I'll read you a quote from a book on practice and procedure of Parliament by M.N. Cow and S.L. Shakda. It talks about the Speaker, and it says, the all-important and ceremonial head of the Lok Sabha, which is Parliament, is the Speaker. Within the walls of the House, his authority is supreme. This authority is based on the Speaker's absolute and unvarying impartiality. This is the main feature of his office and the law of its life. That's all. The Speaker is very powerful within the walls of that. But there's a qualifier. This is based on the Speaker's absolute and unvarying impartiality. What we have seen, we are quoting Lucas and Kapianga's punishment, was totally unfair. It was totally unfair. So presiding officers must restrain themselves, first of all, from frustrating the work of members of Parliament. They must also understand that these are people's representatives. So in this particular case, if you look at what I've just read, the respect of the Speaker is earned by the absolute and unvarying impartiality. Honorable Kapianga is a respected member of Parliament. He came to this Parliament with over 50,000 votes. He cannot be addressed by a presiding officer as if they're talking to a little boy. He's bound to react. We must remind presiding officers, those honorable members of Parliament are not their children. They are not their children. Those are people's representatives. They deserve all the respect even as they discharge their functions. So the manner in which the presiding officers have been addressing members of Parliament is disrespectful. We don't expect the presiding officer to start shouting at members of Parliament, hey, sit down. No. The proper language would be, may the honorable member of Parliament take his seat. That's what we are used to. We've been in this Parliament close for 10 years. It's only the past 3 years that members of Parliament have been mistreated in the manner that we are observing. So Honorable Kapianga could no longer condone or stand the mistreatment or the lack of respect from the presiding officers. What we are calling for from presiding officers is that members of Parliament should be respected. Members of Parliament are representatives of the people. And as they appear in Parliament, They are not there as the children of presiding officers. Presiding officers must understand their distinct role. They are just there to regulate debate. They should rarely get involved in deliberations that are on the floor of the House. What we have discovered is that if you take stock, go back on Facebook and watch, presiding officers speak more than members of parliament. This is the only parliament where we have seen that. In other jurisdictions, you'll have to ask, is the presiding officer here? They allow their house to run. Parliament has got a structure. There's a structure, there are whips in that house, deputy whips to run the house. But what we see is that and he loses that word. I mean, the entire presiding officer presides units of members of parliament. I'll take another quote from the same book, Practice and Procedure of Parliament by M.N. Cow and S.L. Shakda. So in interpreting privileges, therefore, regard must be had to the general principle that the privileges of Parliament are granted to members in order that they may be able to perform their duties in Parliament without let or hindrance. And these privileges include freedom of speech. Yeah, so even as presiding officers are presiding over matters in Parliament, they must understand that those privileges and immunities given to parliamentarians are so that they can discharge their functions without any hindrance. Yeah, so I thought it was very important for us to register our displeasure in the manner that Honorable Lucas Simumba and Honorable Kapianga were removed from Parliament. Colleagues, very quickly, I just want to agree with my colleagues when they talked about certain provisions in the Constitution which have not been implemented, like Article 259. So really there's little benefit in having a Constitution that can be ignored with impunity or changed unilaterally by those in power, or the one that is so framed that the democratic nature of the Constitution can be undermined by exclusionary political practices, like we are seeing in the UPND now. What's the point of having a Constitution which can be ignored? So when you talk about the rule of law, if the rule of law is weak, like we have under the UPND, the Constitution is selectively applied, and this will undermine the achievement of a constitutional order. So Zambia as a country, I think we've had a very progressive constitutional order. What the UPND wants to do now is to disturb that constitutional order. There is a difference between a constitutional order and the constitutional text. So constitutional order, in a broader sense, will include customs, conventions, norms, traditions, and indeed judicial decisions. But what we are seeing now is that there's so much focus on the constitutional text. The UPND would like to ignore our constitutional order. If you look at the 2016 Constitution and what it went through, even the failed Bill 10 and what it went through, you actually saw that there was due process. There was a process of consultation. And if you go back and look at what arguments the UPND were advancing when they were arguing against Bill 10, you will not believe that it's the same president who was president of the UPND in opposition, now at State House, and presenting the argument that he's presenting now. One of the arguments that President Hakainde Hichilema advanced was that government could not come up with a draft. This was his argument in our meetings with him. He says government should never come up with a draft. He understood the fact that, and correctly so, constitutions are there to discipline government. Constitutions are there to check the excesses of government action. So therefore, how should it be then that government comes up with a draft that should end up in a constitution to check itself? He argued vehemently that government should not be the one to come up with a draft. We are surprised today that President Hakainde Hichilema has got a draft that, first of all, the church does not know about, his Minister of Justice does not even know about, the Attorney General does not know about. Then we're all wondering, who is he sitting with? Who is he consulting? So, in agreeing with my friends, I'm saying there are constitutional provisions right now which are not being implemented, and that we should start, first of all, by fully implementing Article 259 before we start talking about empowerment, as it were. Otherwise, as Zambians, when we're choosing constitutionalism, we were saying no to despotism. And you know, and the precariousness of living under rulers who can act in an arbitrary manner. By establishing a constitutional order, society is attempting to impose rules on rulers and to allow non-elites, okay, to institutionally constrain the elites from, and hold them to account. So we have a constitutional order. Zambians have got minimum expectations when it comes to amending the constitution. So what the UPND is suggesting is a no-no. What they must come to terms with, the UPND must now come to terms that they have no time. There is no time within which the constitution can be amended constitutionally. They must understand that even if they only have one single amendment, it still has to go through the process. It's not up to members of parliament. It's not up to the mechanical numbers to amend the constitution. It has to go through a consultative process. There is no such a thing as a low-hanging fruit in constitution making. There is no such a thing as the non-contentious. You only say something is non-contentious after a consultative meeting. You must sit in a meeting of stakeholders, and in that meeting establish that certain clauses are non-contentious. Then you come up and say, based on the meetings and consultations that we've had, the following have been non-contentious. So every clause in the constitution is contentious. That's why it's in the constitution. If it's not contentious, it's not in the constitution. So Zambians should not be fooled to say delimitation is not contentious. After all, MPs want that. Even for the MPs that are looking forward to delimitation, there is what we call imingalato. Mingalato, they will come and dangle that carrot and show you as if they will divide your constituency. For all you care, the constituencies that to be divided will be totally different. That's where the Mingalato starts. It becomes contentious because the actual constituencies that may be divided are constituencies that nobody knows about as it is. And I want to remind President Hakainde Hichilema, in 2019, when we were having meetings over Bill 10, his argument over delimitation was that the PF was going to take advantage of the process and only do delimitations in their strongholds. That's the reason why he opposed it. So I want to say to President Hakainde Hichilema that that is our argument today. That yes, you want to come just maybe with two clauses. We are saying no to the abridged process because given your history as a party in government now and the many things, the many mingalatos you've done, we must subject whatever amendments to the due process. So firstly, there's no trust between or among stakeholders, and that there is no need to rush any process through. Any amendment, whether it's a single amendment, must go through a full process. So like the Catholic bishops have advised, we have some unfinished business, the expanded Bill of Rights. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the draft of the expanded bill, or if you look at the bill that failed in 2016 on the expanded Bill of Rights, you will agree with me that some of the empowerment that the president is looking for can actually be found in the expanded Bill of Rights. So let's consider the expanded Bill of Rights together with other clauses, other proposed amendments, so that there's a holistic amendment to the Constitution. The piecemeal or cherry-picking clauses to amend may not be very helpful. So if indeed President Hakainde Hichilema is concerned about the plight of women and indeed the plight of youths, he must refer to the bill on the expanded Bill of Rights to realize that, as a matter of fact, that bill may even do a greater job than the piecemeal amendments that he's looking for. So we agree with the church that there must be a comprehensive review on constitutional amendments, so that once we do it once and for all, we come up with a legitimate and indeed a durable constitution that will stand the test of time. As for now, we want to appeal to His Excellency the President Hakainde Hichilema, that the process of amending the Constitution is a process that this country has undergone, is a process that you are fully aware of, and you also know, Your Excellency the President, that you have no time. Where we are now, the time between now and the general elections is not sufficient time, to have sufficient consultations and indeed come up with a draft constitution amendment bill which can later be presented to Parliament for enactment. We are simply out of time. We agree that yes, the Constitution may need amendments based on the consultations that will happen between stakeholders, but the time that is remaining is not enough for those amendments. So I just thought that I could add my voice to this very, very important subject of constitutional amendments, and also make an appeal to the President of this Republic that the Constitution can be amended after the general elections, by whichever government that will come in. Of course, with due consultation with other stakeholders, the people of Zambia. I thank you.
Thanks so much. That was the chairperson for Parliamentary Affairs, who is looking after Parliamentary Affairs, as appointed from the Tonse, who is also the Mpalokoso lawmaker. First things first, basically, can you show me each time? We know that you are trying to temper the voices, and you should know that Article 20 of the Constitution, which is actually above the ZICTA Act, gives us permission to actually express ourselves. In any case, we are within the precincts of Parliament. So stop tampering with our voices, ZICTA. I'm sure you are hearing me, that Article 20 gives us, further we are empowered by Article 76 as members of Parliament to speak to our people. And the ZICTA does not come in, the ZICTA Act doesn't even go above such. So it's indicating whenever ZICTA to Bombeko. Having said that, I would like to say that Vamundubile Wachlanda Pamadiru, Ayale Kanalekana Ayale Chitika Muchalo. Diru dia chinku masana, into dia KCM na CEC. Idio lila na pafio CEC. Ile ndela pali supersonic speed. Ukupoka ichuma cha KCM. Olo muri CEC mwinemo. Muri bamu ababuteko abakwetemo umuto. So chalo la muisabati la twachiteshani. Elo bamundubile bachwana bakumya kono kumya tukusheno mbaidi yabalanda to alternative dispute resolution. Yes, minichwana muri article 118 mu rupapuro rwa Zambia. Yaje kwisanisha bale chitefyo. Then bamundubile bachikumya ko futi kuri article 210 bafyo ifita fyale tero ku parliament pakutala ba member of parliament balande na balanda pona pali ama fik report eko bakateka balandire ati we large type of publish no mbama report pakutira ifi file be fia fisama and bamundubira na balanda pali pafio constitutionalism ifile kulanda hallmark of constitutionalism, transparent and accountability should be undertaken. Icha mupamba bakateka besu ba HH abalela ndapali constitution lero ngamayuksha muli 2016 referendum ideya abelele pamona ma elections bali basoro mkulando ko bati bana mayo imisepela naba no bekwata ama rights no kumuli expanded bill of rights yo yali propose under that referendum if yaba kuchipata balanda chipirikiti zungo na ngula pokoso ndi chibirigiti ndi zungo na ngula pokoso na tumfuat kuliko amasaka draft na tumfuat kuliko amasaka draft ba amasaka yo draft kutumwa bomsha pangani Nangola ku State House. No, but not State House, ku Community House. Kuti mai bomsha panga nda ku State na ku Community House. Kukuti yabo mba you are free to use it anywhere, not kubena Zambia. Pantu abela Zambia as far as we are concerned. That what to agree part content you say. In the constitution making process we say content, the process protects content and the vice versa. Where content also protects the process. No by maba massacre. Mwafinisha this content mudela ndapwa there's a draft. And I think this has been addressed largely by leader of the opposition in actual sense, which is also Tonse, chairperson for parliamentary affairs, has also addressed the issue of presiding officer. Now, that presiding officer, the coordinator Bakulanda, in Article 76. Amashi we have member of parliament. Babika Punemba Sera Privileges Act. Each time encourage freedom of expression. Imamu Filafio Kumonaula and the fact in nine, and the fact in nine. Torimana Parliament, from Dubina that Bamawala Posensta, Alan, and I have a question of clarification. Balam Pera, 10 minutes for a question of clarification. Umbi Muma seconds, Fibalam Puturati. If you're left for Kulandan, Jishman, Tontonga Pokale, the Kokulanda. Elabamo. Voilà what ça suspend. Papula na fie nanika. Nechi shiro pali fi. Ba members of parliament ba opposition ya political party ya PF. Ababe retula ndapo ewo papula talwa suminisha ba moyo. Ba stapo suspend so far. Ama members of parliament pali 60 days opo ba shila ba moyo. Ya pa kwala ya 30 days. Elo ba extra protect your populo. Elo ba executive ba letermuli budget, basa letter article 97, 98, article 34, ya pakale mulupa prorokale. Ela bari no kuleta article 91. Ba member of parliament bachita protest atawe fini iligo bari bachita suspend. Kwa sava imbinsta yo mendo ka ngombia imine pari article 60 yelo coalition ngofya Patriotic Front. Ukwebati insambu political party ya dipero nefo ifiro kwa convention na fimbipo. Era movimento kangomdela ndira tawele ronakana tatwasuminisha kwa watu speaker mu kitecho na abambi bamuchingirira na kabidi abali 16 ababikira po nayo lela ndatwali suspended by ba moyo for 30 days. Eso ba leader of the opposition who is also the chairperson for parliamentary affairs basa mona mo bimuli ba moyo pantu bali abo aperwe what kupeta ukukampena netu chami pirecho mkutirati chamoneka me uli speaker ngaya achitamani ward muma elections ninshaba impasho aba pasho abula moru bali akwato mchachinani so ngachatrani lushira jawadi ala sana tufukushu kufuma kuna kuwadi ukuchileta parliament so balaba ile mulopola kuna kuwadi akula bakufile tufukushinga bati beme ukutira tubachita debate ulia speaker pantu alino mchachinani no tukatana tumu baba kuwati echo chabe lafite mukwayevo chingabera takobati ba speaker mwira iposa mkuya mukita campaign muma wadi pantu kwakula lete tufukushimulya mu parliament umufira kuba impartiality so tulokatonga tuleku baba ngawamana katanga ayiminina ero na smumba na wayiminina bale for that debate smumba bula ama speech ali 4 aya akale aba president alela ngati ba president bakwete chinka mufyo balelanda elo batire duplicate amazi ya moyene walamwe batufuma mu parliament for 7 months for 7 days pantu utukato tuchiri tuleta shani tuleba aba so ichi ba mundubira na matana view ukwe bati buy into efyo ba katolika na yambi ama church mother bodies balandiro ko bati if you react nafsi abantu bengastam ni expanded the Bureau of Rights. The church rights include ama women imisepela not one not two no not which kwali ba ile ba let children's court but taiko the same value lokubika mu Bureau of Rights awe echo bamundu bile balala ndako chako bati ichishinkanga nakutemwa bana mayo ichishinkanga nakutemwa imisepela tento bapela mu Bureau of Rights to expand pakutela nomba bakwate ensambu ishikulu ishakwiminina but the Bureau of Rights expanded Bureau of Rights eyo bale seshiba kainde efirana chwanilanda atkwati kumao timakamba kuti nchibwirikidi zungo kapena nyupokoso I think having said that na chita conclude pani no noti ukwebati enga kuliko ba media bakwete ko ame pusho ifipaka poke fikiri hapa mkwali aba ishiboko ntwaporo constitution what tulaneko luleya kuti basu kama kusho anyone from the media now I'm speaking English anyone from the media who has a question to ask you are free to ask I can't see any. I would like just to thank the media for being supportive in this battle. It's a battle for Zambia, and it's a battle for all of us. Yolulu will watch in Sambun, no shani makachita shani, akabamo. Thank you so much.
Thank you.